of the day. I think everyone will find this to be incredibly insightful. We probably collectively have, 100 years worth of board experience up here. You got, he's got half of it, so no, not at all. Didn't say that a bit. So yeah, we've talked a lot this morning and this afternoon about the strengthening of partnerships, and not just between individuals, but between officers and the advisory leaders that walk alongside all of you, during this mission, and that we certainly want. Our goal is to help you strengthen your relationships within communities. One thing that Mariana and our group did a couple of years ago was we designed a board matrix, and we all took the time to do an analysis of what we thought our skills were that we possessed, as well as the skills maybe that we wanted to develop or also develop, and then beyond that, working with leadership like yourselves. In that case, it was Commissioner Riley and his team. It was, what are the skills that they need within the Salvation Army, and so we could match up where we thought we had our best skills, and where Commissioner Riley and his team said, here's where we need some additional skills. We could find those holes, and that was one of those things that really, I think, helped us in a very tangible way to kind of identify who we next need to have, who we should be looking for additional board seats. So that was just something that came along. And what I wanted to do now was talk a little bit. We've got a series of questions for the panel here. I think you know everybody on the panel, but I want to start with something kind of an icebreaker, and just a quick question. And it's just a one sentence. It says, "What's one thing you wish every officer knew about how board members think?"
Wow, he's starting with the tough questions.
It's supposed to be an icebreaker.
I know.
Engaging.
Gosh, he's just like, whew. He's coming in hot, you guys, from the get-go here. I think I've had a chance to talk to a lot of you already today, and I think there's this perception that board members can be like uptight, right? Or you should be really stressed, or to come and be with us or present to us, and one thing that's outstanding about this board is that we're just regular people like all of you, right? God's created us all very differently, and he's not given anybody any different rank than anybody else, right? We're all children of God, and so our board, we approach it that way. And I think even myself, coming into boards, as I mentioned, I'm blessed to serve on some different boards, but what I have really loved about this board is that you can bring your whole authentic self of who you are and who God created you to be. And we're a pretty easygoing group. So I'll let Dick add some comments to that.
Very briefly, I think that the biggest concern between boards and officers, of what I've spent an hour on this morning, and I still don't think it ever gets through to most officers, as to what the respective roles and the respective responsibilities. That's number one. And number two, I think both sides look at the other and say, why are you here? Don't think about it. Do think about it.
Hit me with the question one more time.
Sure. What's one thing you wish every officer knew about how board members think?
How board members think. Mm-hmm. Got it. From my experience, it's dangerous to assume what a board member's thinking or how a board member thinks. Just like you're all so different, thank God, right? You all have unique gifts. You're all different members of Christ's body. Board members are the same. And what I would tell you to prioritize is building a relationship, so then you can go ahead and partner to generate results. And I refer to them as the 2 R's: relationship, then results. Oftentimes, I've been serving on Salvation Army boards for like 10 years and at every level imaginable. My favorite moments of an officer is when they were my pastor. When they prayed for my kid, when they attended a family session, and when they did those things for me, I would do almost anything for them as a board member. So Dick's right in that you want to make sure your roles and responsibilities are clear, and Caltha's right in that we're people too. So it's not like we're these like superpower people that are better or over you. Proving the point that we're all human. So to be clear, we the one thing that we're giving you is our time. Don't waste it. Right? Make sure you run good meetings, make sure that you prepare us, make sure that you utilize us, but you can't get there with us first until you develop a relationship. So don't assume what we're thinking, ask, talk to us about it, and I think that you'll get off to a better start.
Fantastic. Yeah, thanks, Jordan. Thanks to all of you for your answers. I think they were very insightful pieces of information. Kind of running along the great meetings, and Chad's spent quite a bit of time talking about having effective meetings, having energy and curiosity and engagement. I want to start where partnerships often show up most visibly, and that is the board meeting. And this next question is, what makes a meeting feel productive and worth attending?
Well, we have our board meeting tomorrow, so hopefully we're going to be productive. And well, first of all, is putting in the effort, right, in advance, and really putting the time. Well, number one, praying over it, right? That's important, because it's like, God, what do you want us to do, and what do you want to get out of the meeting? But you should always plan ahead. I think time management, organization, those are the two most critical skills that I learned were important when I was teaching at West Point. And it has really served me well just in my career, because I'm working, a job and leading teams, and I have teams in Frankfurt and Helsinki, and I have these boards. But if I'm not organized and I don't plan ahead, I can't bring my whole self, my whole authentic self, and the level of excellence that Jesus asks from me to what I'm doing. So having an agenda, so we send our read ahead before the meeting so that the board members know what we're going to be discussing. We actually are going to be having some cadets at our meeting tomorrow, so people are aware of that. We can be open. We know what the topics are, so we're not figuring things out in the moment. I always say you can't be building a plane while you're trying to fly a plane, right? You got to build the plane first and then fly the plane. So planning is really important, and I would say that organization allows you to have good time management and then have a successful meeting.
Just tagging on with that, time management, of course, I emphasized that this morning, not feeling when you leave the meeting like you've been excluded, not feeling like you've been ignored. You don't have to, every board member doesn't have to speak, but they all need to feel like they've had some part in the process and aren't just a dispassionate observer. And the final thing is that we're making progress. Maybe we don't have a solution after this meeting, in any meeting, but we need to feel like the continuum is moving ahead and we're making progress. You don't need a solution every meeting, but you need to feel like you mark the mark in the sand and we've moved beyond it.
Mm-hmm. Well said. I completely agree with that. Have you ever seen that coffee cup that said, I just left a meeting that could have been an email? You ever see that one? That's a lot of board meetings, unfortunately. Dick was exactly right. Even for your introverted board members, they want to feel like they made a contribution. They want to feel included. There's a couple of things that I feel comprise a really good board meeting and hit all the marks. Caltha said it. Send a pre-read. Don't have me show up at your board meeting looking at you like a deer in the headlights, asking you, why am I here? What are we talking about? What order are we talking about it in? And that's just a really negative experience. You probably hate meetings like that. So do your board members. So even if it's an imperfect, incomplete one, send some type of pre-read that says, here's where we're meeting, here's what time we're meeting, here's what we're going to be discussing, here's how to prep. The second one is, and this is pretty basic, but it's maybe the most important, start and end on time. Period. Start on time, end on time. You want to engage board members? Do that. You want great meetings? Do that. Even if you want people to stay after and hang out, end the meeting and let them stay after and hang out. Start and end on time. And then the third one is kind of a progressive approach compared to the way that Salvation Army board meetings are typically ran, which is, if you ever have any of you been to a board meeting in the field yet, like on your assignments? Okay. You notice how at the beginning of the meeting, they do the committee reports and everybody reads their reports and everybody's like, okay, good job, great. And at the end, you scramble to get through the rest of the meeting, and then it ends without. The one thing I like to do is to shift that from the beginning to the end. So send the committee reports before you meet, and then have all the committee chairs, instead of reading out what they just did, report out what they're about to do next. See the difference? That way you go committee chair by committee chair and saying, fundraising is going to do this in the next 30 days, and programs is going to do this in the next 30 days. Lastly, you had a good board meeting if the chairperson and the officer do the least talking. Think about that.
Great. I think those are some great insights from all three of you. And I think some key takeaways that I heard were: have an agenda, start and finish on time, make sure you have a quality pre-read that enlightens all the people that are going to attend the meeting, and make sure that there's something for everyone to feel like they're part of the engagement, and then have meaningful discussions and have either next steps or that you're making progress. So, well, that's great. So I think that shows a lot about what makes things work well. Kind of along that, let's talk about engagement and retention. And one of the challenges that many cores have is just not recruiting board members, but keeping them engaged. And we've talked a little bit about that, or quite a bit about that today. But this next question is, what makes a board member stay committed long term? And on the flip side of that, what causes disengagement?
Yeah, it's the opinion on this one.
They got to pass it to the guy that spent 55 years on one board and 42 on the other. What makes you stay? I stay because I'm appreciated. They may not like me. They may not like everything I say, but they appreciate the fact that I'm there and we're getting things done, and we have a purpose. And so I think that's clearly why I stay. The minute I felt I was not wanted, I'd be out of there. I have other things in life to do at my age other than to sit where I'm not appreciated or not wanted, and I feel totally appreciated, not always liked, but I'm the resident contrarian on every board I've ever been on. So, if you want to take one side, I'll take the other, and then we'll figure it out in the middle. And that's not all bad. It's not all bad. We don't always need to agree in the process, but we always have to agree at the end.
Yeah, I hate going after you. You know that? You always have to. It's hard to follow Dick. He said it as he usually does. Remember that the officer and the board member relationship is a two-way street. But if you do it the right way, the easiest part should be for the officer. Remember, you have people in us that are offering you our time, which is our most precious asset. So if you honor that time and you appreciate that time, how much more would we be willing to do or willing to give if we lead with the most precious thing that we have, which is our time? I would maybe you two will agree, but the things that have kept me as a board member, in addition to being included and utilized and appreciated, are just the smallest things in the world. Asking about how my family's doing and offering to pray for me, or being a go-to person for me to confide in if I'm experiencing a spiritual challenge or going through a tough time. Some of the board members that you will work with, you might be the only pastor or clergy that they'll ever see. These business people who own organizations and who run, big teams and stuff, we're not in the church. We're usually in the office or on the road. And so I would just encourage you to embrace that role as our friend, as our pastor, as someone who's given us an opportunity. And if you just appreciate us and value our time, that'd probably be one of the biggest ROIs that you'd ever see in terms of how to work with a board member.
Yeah, excellent. Well said. Agreeing with both of you. And I think the one thing that I'll add is the skills and talents that we possess that are being utilized, right? If you sit on a board and you're not really being utilized, it's kind of, your thought processes is like, well, why am I here? And so when I made the decision to join the Salvation Army, I off-boarded myself for 2 other boards because, number one, this is a Jesus-centered, Christ-centered organization that I knew I would want to spend time in. But also, too, I had kind of rolled off and felt like I've offered what I could offer, right, for those other boards. And so it's important to be utilized, right, and to to kind of do that inventory with your board to see and ask, where would you like to be utilized? What skills and talents do you have? Would you be great on the program committee or the executive committee or the finance or marketing, right? Because again, it's not about just sitting on the board and getting the free lunch. You're actually doing work and you want to be able to contribute. So being able to take, like I said, that inventory of the skills and talents of your board, and then it's a success and a win-win for both parties involved.
Great, thank you. I thank you guys. I think that's a great segue to our next question, and I sense that we've had a lot of dialogue about this today. Is about how do you find the right people, and how do I know where to go, and how do I know based upon what skills we need, how do I find those people, and what are some of those things, attributes that we should be looking at. So kind of a two-part question here is when you are thinking about adding someone to a board, what qualities matter more than a title or a financial capacity of a person that you're looking to recruit? And secondly, how can officers better equip board members to invite others into involvement?
All right, there's a two-part question. You made me go first on. Okay, so
I think Dick knew the questions in advance.
Okay, I did too. I just didn't read them. Okay, so since it's a two-part question, I'll answer it in two parts. One answer is in principle, and one answer is in practice. Okay, in principle, the thing I love about Salvation Army boards is the way that we say that we serve people without discrimination. We also partner with them without discrimination, meaning that they don't have to be believers yet.
But it helps.
They don't have to be believers yet. It's your job to minister to them, by the way, to join our boards. We invite everybody who wants to be a part of our mission to partner with us, to receive our services, etc., right? And so while they don't have to believe everything that we believe, they just can't be opposed to it. We don't want anybody in our organization who is opposed to preaching the gospel of Jesus Christ, who is opposed to meeting human need in his name without discrimination. So you might not have to be exactly aligned, but you can't be opposed to it. We offer no apologies for who we are or what we're about. And so we welcome anybody to join us. They might not be from the same background or have the same exact beliefs as long as they're not opposed to it. So that's the in principle part. Our mission is what it is. We're proud of it. We offer no apologies for it. We welcome everybody to be a part of it. In practice, if you are going to a corps that doesn't have a strong advisory board, or you're looking to bring on a member who's going to give you a lot of return, I would actually prioritize someone in the community who was connected, that can open doors for me and allow me to build a pipeline of even more supporters. From my experience, that's been someone who's at a chamber of commerce, or someone who's in the community actually out there meeting with people and having meetings. If you can turn someone like that into an advocate, they're going to be an echo effect for you as an officer, especially if you're an introverted officer that doesn't want to go out there and shake hands all day, every day. So to summarize, people who are aligned to our mission and not opposed to it. In fact, we hope that they brag about it and spread the news to others. And in practice, someone who can go out there and be a multiplier for you in terms of how many people you're connected with and how many doors can be opened for you.
Great.
Well, first of all, my wife chewed me out at lunch for using the word Modesto too many times, so I'm going to try and look at her looking the other direction. This is the chairman of the ARC Council in Phoenix, and she's chewing on me. Okay. Back in another life, in a different town, I was known as the connected guy. I actually had a business associate who was well connected in town, and he would call me when he met somebody that he thought I didn't know. Hey, Dick, I met somebody and you don't know him. He'd tell me, and I'd say, I had lunch with a guy 2 weeks ago. And I did know the movers and shakers in town. Somebody wrote a column in the local paper, to be unnamed, about Dick Hagerty knows the movers and shakers in the community. And so to me, it was always important that I didn't quite make this point this morning, but I always believe in recruiting because I didn't have a focus on recruiting, but it says in my book, shoot for the best. Always shoot for the top, and then just work your way down. And don't tell the person that you've asked the third person down that, hey, you're our third choice. But in reality, that's where you are. You got to grab the CEO. You got to grab the mayor. You got to grab the board of supervisors chairman. You got to grab that top person. If they won't do it, then who's next in line, and go down. So that's to me, number one, is to prioritize. Number one, in terms of who they are in the community. Number two is to who's the mover and shaker. Number three, what you just said, who can make things happen? Who's the do it by? So that's first. And second, I'm just going to go back to the whole hour and a half of years I wasted this morning and say it's all about relationships.
I don't remember the question.
So it was, what qualities matter more than title or financial capacity for a potential board member? And secondly, how can officers better equip board members to invite others into involvement?
Okay. Yeah, the twofold question. Well, if I'm sitting in where you guys are, and as you're thinking about either reviving a board, building a new board, anybody that you meet, having that connection. Katie talked about that, and I talked about that, meeting Katie, right? It was a 5-minute conversation, but in that 5-minute conversation, I learned that she had a marketing background. I'm already thinking about our board. We're trying to diversify our board with different skills and talents, and it's not something that we had. And then from there, we start the conversation. But also, too, it's bigger. It's a bigger picture, because what can this person contribute, right? And they should want to contribute, right? Not just attend the lunch, just come to the lunch. But and unfortunately, the reality is that's what happens a lot of times. People are just showing up to have the lunch, but there's no action, right? And so I think asking somebody, how would you like to contribute? What skills and talents do you possess that could help us in what we're trying to achieve? And that also comes back to understanding what your goals and objectives are, right? They're all going to be different for all the areas that you're going to be in. So I think if that's always your foundational kind of question and baseline, right? That's your infrastructure. What are the goals and objectives? What are we trying to accomplish? And then how do I bring those people in that are going to be passionate about doing that work, who aren't just checking the box to be on a board or, the quarterly lunch or whatever it is. And so I think if you stay centered on those things, and of course, relationships, we all know, right? That's the number one thing I'm sure you guys have taken from. And it was a great reminder even for myself as we continue to build our board, and we continue to make sure we have the tools and resources that we can share with you to make sure you're set up for success. It has to come back to that one thing, right? That relationship piece. And if you build those relationships and you cultivate those relationships, you're going to end up with the right people that you need.
One quick add-on.
Sure. I got another one after
One
this.
quick add-on. Be careful who you put on your board, what their motives are. We had a mayor in Modesto, and she'd been an 8-year mayor. She was termed. Sorry, Teresa, she's pointing at me.
I'm trying to reset.
We had a mayor. She'd been in 8 years, and she was a very prominent family. And after she stepped down from mayor, she came to us and she asked if she could join our board. Wow, we were ecstatic. Hey, absolutely. This is what a coup this is, a famous name in town. And turned out she's running for state senate as soon as she's termed out as mayor, and her ads all listed her community relationships, and Salvation Army was always first or second, and she never came to a meeting. She never gave us a dime. She never did a blankety-blank thing except put our name on all of her advertising. Guess what? In December, when we always evaluate board people, we threw her off. Nicely, but we threw her off.
They asked if she was elected to the Senate.
No.
Okay. Well, he threw off the Senate too. The one thing I wanted to add is every answer that we just gave means that you have already started to recruit. But you have to feel comfortable recruiting in the first place. Like, keep it real. How many of you, raise your hands if you feel supremely confident about how to go out there and recruit new board members? Great. I like it. Let's talk afterwards. I might steal your secrets. Love it. Recruiting is tough. It's probably the toughest part about building out a board. Running meetings, you could figure it out. Committees, you could figure it out. But recruiting is getting the party started, which is the hardest part. I would encourage you, if you don't feel supremely confident recruiting, to go out there and have some fun, make fun of yourself, to keep trying it out until you feel like the confidence has come. There's a way of phrasing things that I'm a big fan of. It says that if you want to be great at something, you first have to be good at it. And before you're good at something, you have to be bad at it. And before you're bad at something, you have to try it. So go out there and go in that order to become a great recruiter. One of my favorite stories is from a mentor of mine, used to be an executive at LinkedIn. He left. He was a horrible public speaker, but he wanted to be a great public speaker. So he went out to the local library and signed up for every speaking gig that he would do for free, no matter how big or small the audience is, and he did it for 5 months. He's currently the best public speaker that I know because of practice. So I would just encourage you, like, recruiting is intimidating, especially if you're an introvert and it's a like low energy thing for you. So go out there and have some fun. You're like, this is going to be the worst recruiting pitch I have ever given. And then it'll get better from there. And once you find that confidence, you'll really start to hit your stride.
So some key takeaways I heard from that. We talked about alignment. We talked about purpose. We talked about finding those people that have the right skill set for what we need. We've talked about practice and get more comfortable with it. Fail fast. But yeah, you can start with it doesn't have to be necessarily board recruiting. It could be trying to recruit somebody to help you work at the local dog shelter for a day. It's just those kinds of things where you put together a step-by-step process or some thoughts on how that's going to work and how you're going to ask and how you're going to engage people. So I think those are great. This next one, it kind of goes in line with a lot that Katie talked about today and about business acumen and marketing. And many of you bring professional expertise, from years of work, and you have wonderful resumes of things that you've done, both inside and outside of the Army. But from a business perspective, what do officers sometimes underestimate about marketing, storytelling, or operational discipline?
They're reluctant to just ask. A colonel that will go unnamed right now, but he was very prominent in this territory, commended me one time on a piece that I'd written. He started calling me Mr. Just Ask, because whether it's fundraising or whether it's board recruitment or whether it's getting involved in one of our projects, the first thing you have to do is ask. Mm-hmm. And he said, that is putting it so simply, but it's so basic. You just have to ask. Behind that, you better have a good story. You better have a good understanding. You better have a good basis. You better have a good process. You better have a good project. But to begin with, you just ask.
Oh, you're putting it on me next after Dick here. I think planning. So whether your first year, like I said, you've got 18 months till this time, right? Or you have 6 months, 5 or 6 months till graduation. But you should, hopefully today, it really sparked you to start thinking about what's my strategic plan for wherever I go, right? Because you don't know where you're going to be. But you really should have a baseline of what is this really going to look like from managing like P&L. If you guys heard the term P&L, is everybody familiar with P&L? Okay, profit and loss, right? You guys are CEOs of your territory. You're responsible for everything. You get a budget, you got to manage that well. You're going to get a board, or you're going to create a board. You've got to put that together. I mean, you're the CEO, right? The most important person that's running and cascading everything down. So from this moment on, hopefully today has motivated you to put together a plan. What's my game plan going to look like? Maybe, and again, remember I said the power of 3. And just think of 3 areas that can work no matter where you go, because you've got a game plan of, okay, based on if I have a board, I'm inheriting a board, or I need to create a new board, what's that going to look like? Okay, as I talk about the areas of the community that I might want to engage with, businesses, I might want to find out if they're headquartered in my region. I'm going to work with them. I think you're in a great position to set yourselves up for success, because really you shouldn't graduate from this program and not feel like you don't have a plan, right? But you've got to take the time and the effort, and it takes discipline. And I'd put some accountability around it and have, I wouldn't even say your spouse, I'd say somebody else that's in the program to say, hey, I've said every quarter we're going to meet together. Let's actually talk about what our plan looks like. Start utilizing each other. Remember I said work inside the box. It does not have to always be outside the box thinking, but accountability helps you get to where you want to go. And if you don't have a plan, then you're not really going to get there. So I'd pick 3 areas that these are things that I can control, I can prepare. Yeah, this is going to differ based on what region I'm in, but you're going to feel ready.
That's good, Caltha. I'll just build on that because that's a really good point. Because the things that Dan asked about, their categories of business acumen, and it depends on where your core is at and where your budget is at and all of those things. So I'll share something that I've been talking about in leadership classes or workshops that I've been giving about the difference between strategic planning and adaptive planning. And there's a really big difference between the two. Before you talk about planning in general, you shouldn't do any planning until you have a strong foundation to build a plan upon. And when I say foundation, I don't want you to have like this ambiguous term that's overwhelming or confusing to understand. For instance, before you have a great board, you have to run great board meetings. That's a foundational thing. Nobody's going to want to serve on your board if your meetings are horrible, right? So you got to get your foundation set. Before you go out there and have a great fundraising plan, you have to have a good budget, so you're not bleeding expenses or your costs are not out of control. So make sure you always prioritize building a strong foundation. But when you have that, consider whether it's best to use a strategic plan, which is a look ahead over a course of 5 years and has a lot of data and assumptions built into it, or something that might be a better starting point for you, which is referred to as an adaptive plan. And what an adaptive plan says or looks at is, what are the things that I need to plan for that would have me in the best case, the worst case, and the most likely scenario. If you can look ahead and say, what is the worst case scenario for my core, the best case scenario for my core, and then I'm probably going to end up in between those two scenarios, which is the most likely, and what am I going to do in each one, and be prepared and put the mechanisms in place to be able to execute either one of those scenarios within that adaptive plan. The other way to look at an adaptive plan, which is hopefully energizing to you, not draining, because I don't know if you notice this, but when you work on things that are draining, they usually never get done, versus the things that are energizing, is say when you're setting a goal, if I fail miserably at every single thing but still get this one thing right, I'll be successful. That's going to be your top goal. So whether it's getting your budget under control, or whether it's raising funds or having a big event or building your board, think about when you get to your core in July and you have 6 months for the rest of the year, what's that one thing that if I just knock this out of the park, I'll see success? And that would give you a much better way to go about planning.
Great. I just kind of follow up on that. Do you think there's a kind of a disconnect or a misconception that because you're all business leaders, that maybe people within the Army think, well, that's the external business world, and that's really a different mission? It's about P&L, and it's about return to share owners, as opposed to in the mission of the Army, it's more about bringing people to Jesus Christ. Do you think that's a missed opportunity?
You want me to go first on this one? Just pick up. So if I heard the question correctly, do I think that officers are assuming that for us it's really more about metrics and business and less about the ministry?
And there's just less application because it's a business application as opposed to a...
Depending on the board member, I actually think the reason why I serve on so many Salvation Army boards instead of just like only private or startup or government boards is because the Salvation Army offers us a unique opportunity to both work with a fascinating, multi-layered organization that does so many different things that we get to be a part of and understand and work on, and the more important one, preach the gospel of Jesus Christ. I can't go anywhere else in the world and get both of those things in a way that serves other people, right? So for me, like, even if I wanted to leave the Army and I don't, I almost couldn't, because this is what I'm here to do. And so that when I was saying earlier that we offer no apologies for who we are and what we're about, we should be proud in this really big blessing that the Lord has given us, that we have a unique opportunity, even you as officers, where you're learning the administrator side and the pastoral side of things. You literally can't find this anywhere else in the world. One of my favorite stories is when the generosity of the Church of Latter-day Saints came to the Salvation Army Western Territory, where they said, hey, we have $1 million. I remember this story, and we want to serve people. We just think you're the better ones to do it. And they made that $1 million donation to us because they knew we were uniquely positioned to use that money that they had donated to go help other people. And so for me, it's actually the opposite. Not only do I not think that I'll be bored with the Salvation Army, or that it's only one-sided. I actually think it's, and I think you're here for that reason, a very fascinating opportunity to get the best of both worlds.
So I think if hopefully everybody heard that from Joey, because I think if you're looking for a recruitment speech or a tagline to give to your prospective board members, a lot of what he just said goes really well with that. Yep. It absolutely hits home with what you want to tell somebody why they should belong on your board.
Joey has affirmed so many things that I said this morning, word for word, and he wasn't even here. And one of them, the sense of what he just said now, is we respect each other's roles. And when the really good quality officer has good quality board, that officer respects the board for the financial and the business aspects, and the board respects that officer for preaching the gospel and keeping the spiritual pulse going, as well as holding the entity together as the CEO. We respect those roles, and Joey mentioned that that is so critical, and I can't affirm it enough. Enough on that one. I got more to say, but
as long as it's not about Modesto, we're okay.
Oh my gosh. I'll just add, ministry and business is very interchangeable. I think people think it's different, but it's not. God designed business. God designed us for work. And all the money that gets exchanged in ministry and or business is God's money, right? So we have to steward it well, and it's our responsibility to do that. And so I think as you just approach, so many different areas. And listen, I think I've failed more than I've been successful, but that's gotten to me where I am today, right? And this is why it's important to kind of trial some of these things out and start planning and start putting things together, right? Because God wants you to be successful, and he wants you to be able to be successful in building, right? Making heaven crowded. And so as you guys, as you do that, just lean on each other, utilize each other, because I think a lot of times those of us, we want to serve the Lord, we want to do things well, but we think we have to do it on our own. And he's given us each other, right? Not only for fellowship, but to do business and to work. It's interchangeable. Ministries, you bring ministry into business, business is ministry. It's the same thing because God created all of it, right? So you put your best foot forward by always raising your level of excellence in whatever you're doing. And practice, like Joey was saying, go through those rehearsals, because none of us are ever going to, right? Perfection. Heaven is the only place where perfection is. But in the meantime, utilize the resources that are available to you, utilize people. You got the THQ here that's great. You've got your development teams and your marketing folks. You've got us as a board, utilize us, right? Use those resources, because you don't need to do it on your own. And when you can open up yourself, especially too, even for constructive feedback and for help and accountability, you're really serving God well that way. So keep that at the top of your mind.
Thanks, Caltha. So just to zoom out for a moment and kind of get a big picture reflection, just want to get your thoughts on what business or leadership principle has most strengthened your advisory board experience, and how could officers apply that in core leadership?
probably the fact that I'm a CPA, even though I don't practice, gave me strength in numbers. Other people dread finance. It's very difficult to form a finance committee. I welcome the monthly flow of financial information that comes from ARC Command here. It's usually about 40 pages long, and I I just read it like somebody else would read a magazine. It's fascinating to me to see what the trends and things are. So I think my business financial acumen helps. I've also done a lot of business consulting, and the strength that I have in all the consulting I've done over the years, corollary to my CPA practice, and then subsequent to that, allows me to analyze local situations, not only in that big, beautiful city in the Central Valley that has lemon trees and all, but also in a number of other places that I've done mentoring of boards around. So I think my skills, both in terms of financial and in consulting, gives me the energy and the ability to evaluate what's going on, your strengths, your weaknesses, and if you got weaknesses, and everybody does, how to build on them and strengthen them back up.
There's two principles that I subscribe to in business that also strongly apply to boards. The first one is diverse teams win, and the second one is the downstream swimmer outperforms. Let me explain both of them. Like there's been so much controversy around diversity lately, right? Like on every way imaginable. But the fact is that the more diverse a group of people who are working together against a single focus is, the more likely they are to outperform the group who is not. Meaning that when there's diversity of thought, when there's a diversity in the ideas that are thought of and the resources that can be acquired to execute those ideas, you're going to have more performance. That's just a fact. So as you're building out your boards and your councils, look to see how you can diversify the industries that they're from, the capabilities that they have, because that's something that when I build teams at LinkedIn, I look for people who come from different backgrounds that have different capabilities, and I put them together against the same goal. And sure enough, in the last 11 years, those teams have always outperformed the ones who are not. So diverse teams win is number one principle. Number two, in terms of swimming downstream, this one's kind of a newer one for me, but it's true now that it's been a lens that I've been looking through. Before you think of doing something hard or creating something new, try to prove that what you have already, even though it doesn't feel as perfect as that hard idea, or that you can't swim downstream first, is the way that you should go. And what I mean by that is people are going to perform at their best when they're doing things that naturally energize them and they find it naturally easy to focus on. So when you're building a board and say, who should be on this committee or who should I ask to do that? If you come to Joey and you ask him to do something and you see me shrinking in my chair because I start to get drained, or like, well, what about that? Or I meet you with skepticism, you're not going to get as much from Joey versus when you present me with an idea where I go, oh yeah? Who thought of that? Well, maybe we can do this and maybe we could also do that, and I'm energized by it. That is always going to take you so much further than something hard or something new. So I would just encourage you that as you're thinking of ideas or strategies or tactics or relationships, always try to find people that are energized by the things that you're asking them to do, because it's an accelerator that will really benefit you in the ministry.
Excellent. I think I'll just add learning agility. I think that's an area that over the years I've been able to develop, but also in that learning agility, realizing there's areas that I'm not really good at, but I can find the people that are really good that can help. I think a lot, as officers, I'm sure you feel like you've got to take everything on, right? I've got to be great at all these aspects of being CEO of my area that I'll be leading and those people that I'll be leading. But being able to see where your strengths are, and then also to see where your areas of opportunity that you can almost delegate and kind of capitalize and showcase the people that are really good at those things. So just know yourself well, right? Know what you're really good at. And then also know what you're not so good at, and be open to working on some of those skills and helping others help you get better in that area. Because I have, I've failed more than I've succeeded, right? But those failures have allowed me to succeed. And also just being open to also just getting feedback. I have gotten to where I am in my career and in just life because people have loved me enough to give me the truth, right? And when people give you that truth and love, it does help you, right? It helps you continue to soar where God's meant you to be soaring, but then also have those areas that you can work on as well. And if you focus on those things, you'll be very successful.
That was good, Caltha. In fact, I'll take it a step further. Nobody wants to work with a know-it-all. Everybody wants to work with a learn-it-all, including board members. So what Caltha just said is exactly right. While also recognizing, to her point, there's things that you know that you're good at and things that you know you're not good at. I like to put it in the terms of there's a few things as an officer you have to be the best at, and then everything else you have to be good enough at. And for me, as a leader in a corporation, if they asked me to run finances and to be the master of a P&L or to be a CPA, I wouldn't last a day. Because I get drained when I sit there and comb through numbers and try to read insights and do that data analytics. But if you ask me to speak to a group of people, I could do it for 8 hours straight and not get tired. But I still have to know finances enough to be dangerous, or else I can't lead the organization that I'm in charge of. So as officers, embrace being a learn-it-all, while recognizing that there's a few things that you should be a master of, excellent at, and then work just to be good enough at every other thing, because the reality of it is you have to have some level of competency if you're going to run an organization that especially has a duality of being a ministry as a business. So this all comes down to what we've been saying. God forbid you should have any fun doing any of this stuff at all. And that fun is really going to come from the attitude that you have on it. So very well said, Caltha.
So I think we've, in cognizant, we can go over a couple minutes.
If you want to do a final question, we can go over it.
Final question from the audience?
No,
Okay, I'll do the final question. Okay.
have a final question.
Yep. So we did want to do some open Q&A. I think we're running a little close on time, so I want to make sure I heard that from all the panelists here that we got to start and finish on time. So we're going to do that. But
You a dirty look when you.
but certainly I know everyone's going to be around afterwards. So please feel free, and I encourage you all to speak with the folks up here. But just one last final question for each of you. In one sentence, what does a strong officer-board partnership require most?
Willingness to engage.
Trust and respect.
That's a good one. Trust is at the top of the list. Best definition of trust I've ever heard is trust equals consistency over time. Trust is big. The answer to that question is what the board member answers when you ask them that question. So when you're working with your board members, say, hey, you and I are going to be hanging out for maybe a year or 5 years. I don't know. Ask the Salvation Army. But while we're hanging out together, can you define how I can best work with you when we are together? And you would be amazed where that board member would go, well, nobody's ever asked me that before. Thank you for asking. Now that you ask me that, I would really love to see us do this, or how can I help you with this? Just by simply asking, how can I make this relationship a two-way street, board member by board member by board member, that's where you really start to win people over, and you really start to have them show you what they're looking to get out of the relationship, taking that pressure off of yourself.
Yeah, we can take like 2 questions from the.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions for our esteemed panel?
Well, you can take that and I'll take
Oh,
that.
okay.
Does anybody have a question for the panel? Okay, here we go.
Mr. Dick, do you still live in Modesto?
Don't say the name.
I can't say that.
It's like Beetlejuice.
He doesn't.
There was a time when we had the board that was acclaimed to be the best in the West, and time came along and it deteriorated for reasons that I could explain, but nothing is permanent, and I want you to understand that. But when you have the absolute best, the excellence, you have to keep it up, or you will lose it, and then you have to rebuild it, and rebuilding is hard.
Any questions? Okay, we have a question.
Whoever gets stationed in Modesto, I'm like,
Hi.
let me know how I can pray for you. No, just kidding.
You said to ask. I, along with, I guess, a few of our sister session mates and session mates don't have a problem with talking to people, how long should I wait before I ask them to join our advisory board? And also, how long should I wait? Because sometimes people say no, but you can be persistent. How long should I wait before I go down the list to the next, to the next, to the next?
Wow, that's a great question. I'll kick this one off with it's all about relationships, right? Even the relationships you've had a long time or new relationships, you still want to spend some time building that relationship before it's, I mean, when you think about a significant other type relationship, it wasn't like we went on a first date and all of a sudden like, let's get married, right? I mean, that happens sometimes, but realistically, right? You have to take time to get to know somebody and build their trust, like Joey said earlier, right? The trust piece, Katie had it in her presentation too. The trust piece is really important. So I would say, depending on the level of the relationship, right? Somebody you've known a long time, being able to ask them is fairly easy. Somebody you met last week, you probably need to see them 2 or 3 more times to build a relationship so they can get to know you and they can see your authenticity and your transparency. But it's not a cookie, for me, it's not a cookie cutter process, right? I feel like it's been different. I mentioned to you guys how I ended up with the the Cleveland Orchestra. And they had actually, in the first time she approached me, I actually had told her no, because my mom had just passed away and it was just not the right time. But she came back a year later to check in and see if that was the right time. And it was. Had she come 9 months, it might have been okay too, maybe even 6, right? But it just depends on, I think, those relationships. People want to give time. But just assess, you can actually start your list. I'm sure maybe some of you have already started in your head. Have an ABC list of the people you already even know now, whether you're going to be in those regions or not. You want to build those relationships because you might know somebody that's going to help another officer in their location, right? So just kind of pray over it, right? We bring everything to God first, and he'll tell you. I mean, that we know. When you pray and ask him, he'll show you. So I would obviously say for those relationships, go to the Lord like you do with everything else, and he'll give you the timing that will be literally perfect, right? His timing is always perfect. So I would say definitely pray through that.
Real quick, don't do it on your own. Get a board member, recruit a board member who also has relationship, and you can do it together. I'll never forget that morning in 1971, springtime. Three prominent local guys took me to breakfast. 3 of them, and they were all board members, and all 3 of them tag teamed up to ask me to come on the board. I'll never forget those 3. I'll vividly remember the faces are right in front of my eyes.
That's a great tip. To make it a partnership, especially if you have a board member and an officer asking at the same time, especially if that board member likes you, hopefully, much higher likelihood of success. Here's the one thing that I would caution you to be very thoughtful of before you ask, because this might make or break your yes or no that you'll get back when you ask. If someone recruits me or tries to recruit me to the board, I have 2 immediate questions. What are the expectations of me, and can I shadow one of your board meetings first? So to the first question, you need to be prepared to explain what commitments you're asking this prospective board member to make, because we're trying to do the math on our schedules and our priorities before we can even give you a yes or no. So scenario A, which is mediocre, would be like, hey, I'm building a board, or I have a board of Salvation Army. Would you like to join? We meet once a month. And I'm like, cool, what are the expectations? You're like, I'll get back to you in that. I'm like, if you don't know, I'm not sure I feel great about that. Versus the best scenario would be like, hey, we want you to join our board. Here's how many people we serve every year in this community and the ways that we serve them. We want you to be a part of sustaining, if not growing, that impact. The expectations on this board is that we meet monthly, you join at least one committee, and here's the financial contribution we're looking for you to make. I'm open to giving you whatever you need in advance of you saying yes or no, but to be clear, we want you to join our board. What do you think? So there's a big difference between the way you ask those 2 things. Be prepared to give an account up front to what the commitments are, and you'll see a much different response versus if you're unprepared.
So I challenge all of you guys to have an elevator pitch. And the reason is you could be in the grocery store and you meet somebody in 5 minutes, like I met Katie, and you're like, oh yeah, no, I need to recruit this person to the board, right? You got to have an elevator pitch. And so maybe that's something you guys start working on together and help each other in practice. 30 seconds. Because for a lot of the times, you guys, that's going to be their first ever touch the Salvation Army. And you want to make sure you're ready to give that pitch. So I challenge you to have an elevator pitch about the Salvation Army, who you are, what you're doing, and why I think you'd be great to join our board.
I think we're out of time. When you're done, you can just call Principal Terry to come in.
Okay.
But we're done with the session.
Okay. Well, thanks everyone for the questions, and thanks to the panelists for taking some time to dig in on these questions. I think they were very, very useful and very insightful, so I appreciate it. And with that, I will turn it over to Commissioner Terry to close this out.
He got upgraded from major to commissioner.
I skipped many positions. I love it. I will take it. Well, let's put our hands together for the panelists as well as for everyone. It's been a busy day, but guys, what we are learning today, you're going to put to practice for some of you in 4 months' time, and for some a little bit over a year and 4 months from now. So it's really important information. As we come to the close of this 2026 Advisory Organization Seminar, I want us to pause, not just to end the day, but to reflect on what we just experienced today. Today was more than presentations. It was a reminder of who we are and what we can become. I'm grateful to Colonel Ivan. He's been my favorite Salvation Army preacher since I was a cadet, and you could see he wanted to keep going. He loves preaching, and it's always great to have him as the chief secretary at this time. We were reminded this morning that doing the most good, and we have issues, some of us, with our slogan, but we've learned to appreciate it, and we learned that it's actually more than a slogan, it's a calling. And that calling is lived in partnership between officers and advisory board members. We also learned about the origins of our advisory board organizations. We learned how not only General William Booth, but also, actually, when I'm doing this, I'm wondering, were you guys taking notes? Oh, okay, good. Because I took some notes and I was just saying, I hope the cadets are taking notes too. Good. And General Evangeline Booth, when she was the national commander, really helped the advisory organizations grow here in the United States. We also learned about one key word, which we have touched on in class a few times, relationships. That came up repeatedly throughout the day, so we appreciated that. Thank you. We also learned that advisory board members expect well-organized meetings. Please, please, please do not embarrass us when you go out there. Have a plan, start on time, and finish on time. A few of you attend our board meetings here, right? You know they start on time, end on time. So take that with you when you graduate. Caltha reminded us to be very intentional. And Dick reminded us about prayer, that it's not just symbolic, it's a strategy. Katie, whom I enjoyed talking with even at lunch, I'm going to connect her with some friends, Salvation Army friends in New York. Hopefully, if I were the person that I'm thinking about, I would invite you to the board right away. So thank you for challenging us to be good stewards of the brand that the Army is. Cadets, many doors will open for you. Many people, you have dinner with some of the wealthiest people in your communities or with the mayor, and you can also have dinner with the homeless person and the kids in your programs. all that happens because of the brand of the Salvation Army. If you did it by yourself, you probably, those doors won't open. But because we have the army behind us, many doors are opened. So we're reminded of the power of the brand. And then Chad also helped us. How do you awaken a board and keep it going? I think that was really needed because a lot of boards are kind of tired out there. So go and help rejuvenate that. But to the panelists, everything you just said, we appreciate it. Many thanks to you, the four of you, for answering some of the questions you read and didn't read ahead of time. But we are so grateful. And may I go back to the relationship idea that somebody was asking, if somebody when do you know when to ask, or if they say no, what do you do? And your answer was maybe wait a year and then come back to. I had a mayor asked, can you join our board? And she said, no, I'm too busy. And I said, okay, can you be my personal advisory board? Not for the army, just my And she said yes. I still got her to answer questions and do stuff for me with her just knowing that she didn't have to come to meetings, but I could call her anytime. So don't accept a no. Keep working at it. You'll get something. So thank you again to everyone. Thank you to the advisory board. I want to say every core you go to will need a Mariana, somebody who works behind the scenes to make things work and just hands you the program. This is what we're doing today. So thank you for the efforts you put behind the scenes. We're very grateful. Let's put our hands together, definitely. And many thanks to the cadets. I know you could have been doing many other things, but you decided to join us today. So thank you. Thank you so much. I would like to pray for us to conclude the time we've had. Father, we thank you. We thank you for the men and women who have dedicated their time, their money, all their resources to help the army. They are not paid to do what they do, but we are so grateful that they love the Salvation Army so much that they are willing to share their knowledge, their gifts, and their talents with us. Thank you. We thank you for those who couldn't join us today in person, but were online. We're grateful for their engagement, for the questions and the interactions. And above all, we're thankful for the cadets. Thank you for the information they've been taking in. It may be maybe it was too much information for some, but we're grateful that everything that they heard, we pray that they may be able to use it when they get on the field. Thank you, Father, for today and for the partnership between the Salvation Army and the advisory organizations. Thank you for what they're doing. We commit the rest of their meetings into your hands, and may you continue to bless each and every one of them. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. All right. God bless you. The panelists, I think, will hang around a little bit. If you have personal questions you want to come and ask. And then, remember, at 5, we meet for dinner. Okay.
Can we have Katie? Can you come and we're gonna take a panelist photo? Joey, if you want to stay put for a sec.